Well, there are military and there are political implications. Military implications, of course, they're trying to save their troops as much as they can and save equipment from it not to get into Ukrainian hands, like it happened in the north around Kharkiv when Ukrainians pushed forward and Russians ran away, leaving behind quite a lot of its own kit. So that much that some, experts are estimating Russians actually one of the largest donors of Ukrainian armored vehicles and artillery shells. So this time they're trying to avoid that disaster and also to save, the troops. They have lost almost 100,000 soldiers in dead and wounded already in 8 months of the war. But also politically, it's quite significant loss for President Putin in this war. Kherson was the only regional center that Russians took over since the war started. It was the only city that they captured undestroyed and kind of whole that could have been a functioning town, and now they have to withdraw. And from the reporting from Ukrainian security sources, we hear that they heavily mining the city, that they have evacuated quite a lot of civilians, and even some of the Russian troops are changing into civilian clothes to stage some of the urban fights to cause damage to Ukrainian troops as they will be advancing. Of course, Putin is the one that should not be associated with failures and fiascos of this war. So clearly they would choose other spokespersons, such as the Minister of Defense and Shoigu or Sorovikin, the head of the Joint Forces operations in Ukraine. Putin wants to stand away, and if you notice his Valdai speech, he is not mentioning Ukraine anymore, presenting this conflict as a battle between Russia and the American-led transatlantic community that is trying to impose some kind of world order on the rest of the world. Obviously, he's not achieving any of the geostrategic objectives in Ukraine, even plan minimum, such as capturing what thought to be easy at the beginning, the Donbas region in its administrative borders. So he will try perhaps to consolidate Russian military forces on that specific spot around Bakhmut, Donbas, where we see deployment of Wagner. We see quite fierce battle going on between the two sides, unlike in other places where it's artillery fire, and try to perhaps at least take Donbas, but it will be very difficult for him to achieve because of obvious reasons: low morale in Russian armed forces, strong positioning of Ukrainians who know the terrain, who have population on its side, and it will be very difficult for Russia to make any advances, but they will try. And perhaps Russians will be seeking to take some operational pause for the time being, where they will prepare a new cohort of armed forces between now and spring to mount another offensive operation. Yeah, so missile attacks is pretty much the only thing they have to make Ukraine suffer, to raise costs for allies, to support Ukraine fiscally and militarily. But that tactic is not working, and we have seen, since Russia destroyed almost 40% of Ukrainian energy grid, Ukraine still maintains its functioning, and Western assistance is actually increasing, not decreasing. So yes, they may use more drones that they've acquired from Iran, and possibly ballistic missiles that we hear they may be getting, and possibly some escalation from the north in Belarus. But there's very little other than what they have already done that they can demonstrate new to actually break away the spirit of defiance and resistance in Ukraine, I think. We do know, again, that the city is being heavily mined, that Russians are not basically fully leaving the city without any resistance. And that is why, until Ukrainians are in the city, they don't want to declare that they have it controlled. And I think this cautious approach is quite understandable.